Hello super friends and welcome to DC TV Talk, and in today's episode we'll be breaking down and reviewing The Flash, Season 5, Episode 5, otherwise entitled All Dolled Up. And before you proceed with this review, make sure you've seen this episode as it will be filled with spoilers. So The Flash Season 5 has been surprisingly strong this season, delivering a good episode after another good episode, and we have now arrived at Episode 5, which is kind of like a big point in this season in terms of, looking back at how it's been going so far. And as the 5th episode, this definitely had some misfires, but definitely some strong points as well. So the opening scene of this episode was quite interesting because we got to see quite a lot of things going on in regards to Iris and Nora's relationship. We see a mission going on where Barry is basically having to go out here to stop what is essentially just these two robbers, I think it was, just two criminals, and Nora also manages to be there, but while Nora is out in the field, she actually shuts off Iris's comms, so she has no communication with Iris whatsoever, and this eventually ends in two pensioners almost getting killed by a motorbike explosion, and luckily Barry was there to save them, but if Barry wasn't there, they would have been dead, and this causes a bit of a rift between Iris and Nora saying, look, I know what's going on with us, I know we have an issue, but at the end of the day, you're putting people's lives at risk. It's very similar to what happened with Ralph last season. It's kind of like that, and it was quite quite a weird thing to see, considering how this is that relationship still going on, and I'll get back to this at the end, but it was quite interesting to see this carry on. Now, the main bulk of the story here basically goes to a new metahuman who's in Central City who goes by the name of Ragdoll, and he is going around and stealing lots of different items and also just doing a bunch of criminal things, like he sets off a bomb at one point which pretty much takes down an entire building, which I think kind of goes a bit understated in this episode, the fact that an entire building blew up. No one really talks about it significantly, but we do get some really cool stuff with Barry and Iris here, like Iris again doing some journalist work. We got to see her doing a bit of that, Barry doing some CSI work. It's great to see this coming back into the season. I've been mentioning this throughout all of my Flash reviews this season, that seeing Barry doing CSI work and Iris doing journalist work, it's what I want to see these characters doing, so I'm very happy about that, and their dynamic together was really good. Barry and Iris got to spend a lot of this episode together, which was really nice to see, because they actually got some really good scenes, like they got to do like technically their first dance, which they never got to do at their wedding, and things like that. That was a nice scene, and also their more tender moments where they're talking about Iris, especially because, like, Barry was said to Nora at the beginning of the episode, you need to stop treating Iris like your mother from the future. You need to treat her like how she is now. Because even though, yes, this is the same person, she's not mentally the same person now as she is in the future. So you need to treat her differently and separate them. And I thought that was really good. I think Barry's doing a really good job in terms of standing up for Iris, because I didn't expect him to go that route. But even, like, there was the one scene outside of that big party that they went to. That scene was a bit unnecessary, but other than that, I think Barry and Iris' stuff was really good here, and the way it connected into the Ragdoll story I really liked. Now, Ragdoll, played by Troy James, I made a video about this character a while ago when he was first cast, and I am so happy to report how good this character was. Although we never actually see his face, because he does wear a mask, we never actually see his face. We do learn a bit about him. His name is Peter Merkel. Oh no, sorry, we do see his face in like the records, but we don't actually see his face physically on screen. But his character's name is Peter Merkel, and he's basically this rich billionaire's son who was kind of neglected and kind of, felt like he didn't really have that connection to his mother, and he kind of went, because you do meet his mother in this episode, that's why Barry and Iris go to that party, and it kind of gives him the justification as to why he's going and doing these criminal acts. Now, in regards to his backstory, I think that's all fine, but just seeing Ragdoll physically was scary. Like, he was creepy, and I'm so glad that they went the horror route with this, because I thought they were going to make it, because if this was Season 4, this would have been a very silly villain. They would have made this over the top and funny, but given the fact that Season 5 has fixed its tone, this is actually a really creepy villain. So you find out that he was actually crushed by debris during the Enlightenment at the end of Season 4, and that is why he's basically contorted, because basically he was flattened, and that's how he's able to make his body shift into all these different things. And what I love is the sound effects, because every time he moves, like, his body in a weird way, like, there's just like this bone cracking noise. It's horrible, it's cringe inducing, but it really works for this character and just adds to the creepy level. And just, Troy James, who plays him, is a real contortionist. There's really not that much CGI involved here. You do get a few things here and there, but not that much. And, you know, seeing just all of these movements, it's so weird the fact that someone can actually do this. And that adds to it. I think that makes it even more creepy, the fact that this is actually a real guy doing these moves. It's not CGI. It's completely, you know, all Troy James. And I give him all the credit for it because it's absolutely fantastic to watch. It's a great villain, really, you know, visually pleasing villain, very scary. And also his theme is great as well. He has a very scary theme. I'm definitely interested to see if this theme will show up on the Season 5 soundtrack. I hope it does because it's really fun and again adds to a scary level. Like, a good villain needs a good theme, and the Arrowverse is quite good with that. Like Prometheus had a great theme, Malcolm Merlin did, Deathstroke did, Ricardo Diaz has a good theme. Like, all Arrowverse villains, they need a good theme, and I think Ragdoll got a really good one here. So congrats to Blake Neely as always. Now, the other storyline going on in this episode was between Caitlyn, Cisco, Ralph, and Sherlock Wells, and we get to see that Caitlyn is obviously diving into her backstory a little bit more, trying to find out about her father, and all of this stuff I actually quite liked. I thought all of this was really good, because I didn't really mention it, but all the stuff, like with the Ragdoll stuff, apart from Ragdoll himself, I felt that storyline overall was just a bit weak, but this stuff with Caitlyn, I did really like. The way she's going around investigating, trying to find little clues towards who her father is, where he is, what has happened to him. I really like that, and obviously next episode we're really going to dive into that. But I really love just seeing Caitlyn being relevant and actually, you know, having a story, because this is something that she's been lacking for maybe since the entire show. She's never really had a story. Her stories have always resulted to, you know, being the girlfriend of that new character this season, whether it was Ronnie in season 1, you know, whether it was Jay in season 2, or Julian in season 3. She's always been that character, so to actually see her get her own story here is really good. I'm really interested in it. Also, Cisco, he returns in this episode. He wasn't in last week's episode. Cisco was great in this episode. You may have seen me, I don't know if I've mentioned this on videos or not, but if you've seen me on Twitter, you'll definitely know that I've been talking about how Cisco has felt different to me this season. He hasn't felt like the same character that we had in the past 4 seasons. But in this episode, this was the first episode where I actually felt like it was Cisco. Like, this actually felt like Cisco to me. And that makes me happy. I'm glad that Cisco is back to his normal self. He seems to be, you know, maybe coming over Gypsy's breakup a little bit more better. And I'm happy about that. And what I really love about Cisco in this is that they give him some development, which now he can still vibe, but every time he does, it physically hurts him. Like, you see his hands start bleeding after he does it. Like, it's physically hurting himself. And that was really interesting because they never quite cleared up what happened to Cisco at the end of episode 3. You know, they never clarified if he lost his powers, so he hasn't lost his powers, it really hurts him to do so. Like, if he wants to vibe, it really hurts him. And in this episode, he keeps vibing because he keeps going into all these different locations where Caitlyn's father was, so he keeps vibing it to see if he can find him. And what I love is this gives us a fantastic little conversation between Cisco and Caitlyn, really, you know, developing that friendship even more, because these two need more scenes like this because they're great together. But Caitlyn basically saying, look, I know that you want to help me, and I know you're my friend and all that, but you know, I'm not asking you to keep hurting yourself in order to help me. That's not what I want from you. And I thought this was a great moment. And you know, even Cisco was saying, you know, if I lose my powers, what's my purpose? What am I going to do? And Caitlyn was just like, look, today I didn't need Vibe, I needed Cisco, and things like that. It was a really good moment. I love the conversation between the two. There was also like a third storyline going on. Obviously, Nora has moved into Joe and Cecile's house, and there's basically just like some scenes where Cecile is basically telling her about all these stories about Barry and how great he was, and then at the very end you actually find out that all these stories that Cecile was telling Nora was actually about Iris, to try and convince Nora that, you know, no matter what happens to Iris in the future, no matter how she is like in the future, this is what she's like now, this is the woman she is, and this is the woman she's become to this point in the timeline. And again, I thought this was a really nice moment. I think Cecile was actually really good in this episode because she wasn't over the top, she wasn't, you know, doing too much, you know, she was just like the typical character that she is, and I like that. I like her in this type of role, so she worked really well here. What was weird is they do mention Joe, because obviously Jesse L. Martin is not on the show at this point, so it was interesting because I was waiting for this. I was waiting for like an answer to, you know, obviously we know what's happened to Jesse L. Martin. Obviously he's really injured his back, but we don't know what's the explanation for Joe and why he's not on the show as a character. And they just say, oh, well, when Joe gets back, we need this done, blah, blah, blah. They don't say where he's gone or why he's gone, but he's just gone somewhere. So I don't know what's going on there. Still waiting on an explanation. They might not explain it, but I guess they're going to have to at some point. I mean, Joe's a pretty big character, so I guess they're going to have to. But yeah, we kind of got like a brief mention of it, but still no proper explanation as to where Joe is. Now, I have to discuss the final fight in this episode against Ragman. Ragdoll, not Ragman, sorry, Ragman was the Arrow character that I desperately want to come back. No, Ragdoll. And this fight is just like stupid levels of dumb. I mean, it starts off with Ralph coming out doing this really like epic hero pose where he's like, let's go save the Flash, and Iris goes with him. He's like, right, I'm gonna drive, and then Ralph's like, no, I want to try something. I saw it in a comic book. And then Ralph starts web slinging around the city like Spider-Man using his stretch powers, which I have to admit was quite cool. Cheesy, yes. Comic booky, yes. But I thought it was quite fun to watch, just to see Ralph swinging around. Because I have actually thought about that in my head. I was like, surely Ralph could like kind of web sling, and he can. And I wonder if he'll do it again. I doubt it, but it was still fun to see. But you all know, if you've seen this episode, you all know what I'm talking about this dumb part of it. Barry is obviously kidnapped by Ragdoll, and he is having his power suppressed via these, the metahuman, wrist, what are they called, handcuffs. I was looking for the word there, handcuffs. And basically Ragdoll pushes Barry off the building, and then Iris jumps off the building in order to, with this key that can release Barry from the handcuffs, and then obviously with his powers back, he can grab Iris and save her before they hit the... It was really dumb. They turned Iris into essentially a superhero, which was really stupid. This was like Season 4 Iris stuff that I thought we were getting away from. I mean, what was Iris expecting to happen here? I mean, obviously she hoped that this would happen, but there was no guarantee of this. And, you could have easily messed this up. It was a really stupid decision. I don't understand why the writers felt this was necessary. It was really strange. And obviously it does pay off by saying, Nora got to see how badass Iris was. But it's just like, did they really have to do it that way? Like, did they really have to establish it like that? Like, it was really strange. It was really dumb. It was out of place. And it just, like, completely, cut the legs off all the drama in that scene. Which was otherwise a alright scene. It kind of got cut the legs off. And then Ralph comes out of nowhere, basically has sat on Ragdoll and has like got him inside of his body, which again was very Season 4 Ralph, and I was like, I'm not really a big fan of that. It was a bit of a strange one for me, and like I say, just the Iris stuff was really dumb. And the episode sort of ends as we see Nora and Iris sat in, I guess, what's that room called again? Is it the Time Vortex? I forget what that room's called. The training room, essentially. And they are sat there, and they actually resolve their issues. So this seems to be the end of the Nora and Iris conflict. They actually resolve their issues. They talk it out. Obviously, Nora was given, like, Iris's baby book by Cecile. And obviously, she's looking through that. And after seeing what Iris did in order to save Barry, she was kind of inspired. And, she saw that, obviously, Iris, although she may be a bit more horrible and dry in the future, here now in the present Iris is a pretty great person, and she's able to see that, and this then leads to them having a nice conversation. Barry overhears it, it's all good. It seems to be going back to happy families, and it seems like based on the promo photos for next week's episode that them two are going to be on good terms, so it appears like this is going to be the end of the Nora and Iris conflict, so that's all good to see. And obviously I think this didn't drag out too long, and it wasn't too short either. I think this was the perfect length that they spent on it, and I'm happy with all of it, and especially now that it's sort of come to its conclusion. Overall, for me, All Dolled Up was a bit of a mixed bag. I think it was alright in some places, not so great in others. Like I say, I think a lot of the Caitlyn stuff, Cisco being there, Sherlock and Ralph for the most part, was all really good in this. I really enjoyed that storyline. Ragdoll was fantastic. I loved Ragdoll in this. I thought he was incredible. I really hope he comes back. I have got a video about that coming up very soon, because there was actually a deleted scene from this episode that the CW released, which I want to discuss later. But yeah, Ragdoll was great. The Caitlyn storyline was great. It's just the actual storyline surrounding Ragdoll with Barry and Iris was a bit weak, and like I say, that final fight was quite frankly awful, which really dragged this episode down. So a bit of a mixed bag. Possibly the weakest episode of the season, I'm not too sure. It's either this or episode 2, I'm not quite sure. But this could be the weakest episode. It's not terrible, like I've seen a lot of people saying it's like the worst episode ever, and I'm just like, no, it's just not. Like, nothing will ever be as bad as the season 3 finale. But yes, this episode was not the greatest, probably the weakest of the season, but there's still enjoyment to be found in there, in this episode throughout. But what did you guys think about this episode? Make sure you let me know all your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. And make sure you stay tuned to the channel, as I will have my second Elseworlds trailer breakdown coming out within a few hours. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that one. So, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like. It'll help me out a lot. And share this video with anyone and everyone you know who loves DC TV and get them to join the community. And as always, guys, please subscribe for all of your latest content on Supergirl, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and Arrow. And with all that said, guys, I hope to see you again in my next video.